pivotal moment in the modern adult industry, I would say, was in 1953. This was when the first major mainstream magazine, the Playboy featuring Marilyn Monroe, came out. Now, from there, the pornographic magazines, they were much more prevalent, and that was how you got your porn. Now, that was all pretty normal until the internet came about in 1991. In 1991, the first pay-per-view sites began to appear, and in 2004, there was a transition from pay-per-view to more user-generated sites. And for those of you who don't know, user-generated is where the revenue is generated through advertisements instead of subscriptions. Now, what I want to highlight is that magazines are to our parents' generations and the generations prior to them, and the internet is to the younger generation. So our generation, millennials, the ones that come after us. Now, why is this important? Well, porn today just isn't porn in prior generations. It's much more acceptable or accessible, I want to say. Back then, you had to go into a store and you had to buy a magazine, versus today, all you have to do is just pull up your phone, type in a couple words, and boom, you have it there, you know. And it's easier to do. I mean, you had to go into a store and actually embarrass yourself enough to buy a magazine. And now it's incognito, delete history, whatever. No one ever has to know about it. That's it. Um, it's also more hardcore, it's more niche. If you can think of that type of porn, it already probably exists. And there's also evidence that would say it's even more enticing. So, back then it was just maybe a picture and a little caption below, and now it's moving film. So you have more visual stimulation, you have more auditory stimulation through sound and, you know, whatnot, and you also have more intellectual stimulation. So, the plots and whatnot, whatever you like, it stimulates you more. There's also a lot more of it now. So there was the porn that you had prior generations, plus everything that's being created today. And did you know that roughly 35% of everything downloaded is pornographic? 35%. It's also more socially acceptable. So this is why OnlyFans and other platforms have seemed to skyrocket in the past couple of years because, well, it's not frowned upon as much. So that is a plausible career path. So what makes porn so bad? Well, porn addiction, it exists. Did you know that roughly 10% admit to having an addiction? Did you know that roughly 40 million people in the US alone watch porn regularly? According to our last census in 2020, there are roughly 258 million adults. That means that roughly, give or take, 26 million people admit to being addicted in the US alone. This doesn't count those who won't even admit to their addiction. So porn's addicting. It's also proven to have negative effects on relationships. It can result in people being less satisfied with their partner. It can cause ED or erectile dysfunction. It can make that partner feel inadequate. It ultimately has been proven to lead to a higher chance of separation because of those things. Me personally, I started watching porn before the age of 14, maybe. I know I wasn't in high school yet, and I know I got to high school, I got a girlfriend, and I was hooked on porn though. I mean, I would rather watch this naked girl than have sexual relations with a real girl. So it really does. It drastically affects you. Another major problem with porn is that it's not real, but viewers want it to be real. And this is especially bad when you have certain kinds of porn out there that simply just should not exist. Now, porn's like condomless porn. This teaches us that, you know, doing it raw, no protection, it's just the way to do it. I mean, protection just isn't worth it. Why wear a condom when you can do it without a condom and have it feel better? Porn such as incest porn. This could have the possibility of someone who watches incestual porn to develop an Oedipal or electrocomplex, the desire to be with one's parents, or even have desires to be with a sister or brother, etc., is just not good. Now, the worst kind of porn, in my opinion, is rape porn. More often than not, in these scenarios, the man takes what he wants without consent, and it teaches us that rape is okay, actually. And it teaches us that it's okay because in most of these scenarios, the women say that they don't want it, and in the end, they ended up actually wanting it. This is very dangerous. Now, the population that I want to focus on today, the group of people that I want to focus on today, are children. So porn affects children. Children make up a substantial percentage of viewership, actually. According to a study by the University of New Hampshire, out of 594 participants in this study, 3.2% of the boys and 62.1% of the girls reported watching porn before the age of 18. And another issue with this is that porn isn't always actively seeked out by children either. That same study reported that 42.3% of girls and only 6.8% of boys reported seeing porn before the age of 18 involuntarily. Means they didn't want to see it or they didn't volunteer to see it. They were just shown it. And before the age of 18 is still a child by definition. So we know that children see porn, but what does it do to developing minds? Well, children simply have a harder time discerning fantasy from reality. This means that they are more susceptible to fantasies of porn. And according to a journal entry titled How Pornography Harms the Children, the Advocate's Role, a journal entry done by the ABA or American Bar Association, it said that children who watch these certain kinds of porn or just porn in general are have a higher tendency to sexually abuse. They are more likely to have sexist tendencies as well, or objectifying, other people. Another journal entry titled X-rated material and perpetration of sexually aggressive behavior amongst children and adolescents reported that youth exposed to pornographic material were 6.5 times more likely to show that sexually aggressive behavior. You know, and in my opinion, it's these certain kinds of porn with these certain plots that are ruining the children. So, how do we combat this issue? Well, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, has control over the internet. What I'd like to see them do would be to implement harsher regulation for porn production, so ban the production of incest, rape, and other morally questionable kinds of porn. If we can't get away with that, I would like to see them at least put a tax on porn itself. So a tax on, you know, porn, a tax on the porn being produced. So a more hardcore porn would have a higher tax, and this would lead to less hardcore porn being produced because, well, the porn runs on money. Everything runs on money. We're in a capitalist nation. I'd also like to see all actors to wear condoms. So even if students do see porn, that they aren't seeing a porn that promotes unhealthy habits. Um, Parental controls, come on. You shouldn't be able to type in a website and be there. There should be a real age verification system. And the final and I think most effective solution to solving this problem, or at least going in the right direction with this problem, would be paywalls. So most children just don't have money, especially, a debit or a credit card. So if we had paywalls, children just wouldn't be able to access it because they can't buy it. Easy as that. Now this plan would be funded by the FCC, which already exists, so it wouldn't really need funding. If anything, these taxes would just bring in more government funding. I'd like to see this done by January of 2025. It would be enforced by the DOJ, of course, Department of Justice. And how do we even know that this is actually going to work? Well, ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, um, implemented a plan to lower or raise the legal age of drinking from 18 to 21. It was enforced by DOJ, and it drastically reduced the number of drinkers in that age range of 18 to 20 that they didn't want drinking anymore. Same thing with ATF and cigarettes. It was 18 and 19 in most states, and it got bumped up to 21, and it drastically reduced the number of people smoking. So, in conclusion, porn is bad. It affects children. It's addictive. There are way too many kinds of porn out there that should not be in existence. And I'd just like to thank everyone for watching this video.